Great defeaters, new and old, welcome back to another solo episode of The Breakdown with your host, BaseDaKID. As always, please like and subscribe. Anyone who's new, who's never seen the show before, this isn't the usual format. There is normally myself and someone else, but I'm assuming everyone here was on Monday Night Smoke yesterday. And you will know that Tony has forsaken me for a Masego concert. Um, Last week he decided to forsake me for a holiday, which is cool. But yeah, I guess I'm here on my lonesome. So you guys are gonna keep me company, but it's gonna be a short episode today. There's only 4 fights that I really watched with any real interest over the weekend. So yeah, ultimately we'll kind of get into those, and from there I'll let everyone get on their way. What I might do a bit of a Q&A thing at the end, like the last 10-15 minutes, until about 9:45, and then from we can everyone can sort of go about their merry day. But before I get into anything, I just need to make sure that everyone knows that the show is live. So I just need to send out a quick tweet or X or however they call that right now. But how is everyone? How has everyone's day been? I'll get to the roll call in a moment. Yeah, how is everyone? Let me know. Let me know how your days have been, and I'll be interacting shortly. Okay, and that's that done. Right, so how many people we got in the building? Who's here? Okay, so first and foremost, first one in the building today was Philip Answer. Big ups to you, Philip. Dan the man, SC15, hardest working guy on X. Peckham's finest. You know what it is. You know the deal. Dirty Bags. Big up to you. First time I've seen that name. So if you are new, big up and much respect and thank you for tuning in. Jonah31. Big long time supporter of the channel. Bless ups to you, Jonah. North Bank Bren, each and every time. Shout out to you. Clyde Gordon, sorry, also in the building. You trying to derail us already? Is Canelo still worthy? Well, I mean, yeah, ultimately he's worthy until he gets beat again, or or until he retires. Resume speaks a lot. Um, Obviously his next opponent is going to be a very important saga in terms of what money he can generate. But yeah, G Chain in the building. Big ups to you. Thank you very much for being in attendance. Right. Okay. So, 4 fights. I guess the way that I want to do this, I'm going to start it off talking about the fight that happened Thursday night between JoJo Diaz and what's his name? Andres. I think it's Andres Perez. A fight in which JoJo Diaz actually lost a split decision. Now, the scorecards, before we get to the actual action, it was 95-94 to Diaz, 96-94 Perez, and then one judge, I think it was Lou Moretti, inexplicably had it 99-90. Now, I don't know how many people watched that Thursday night DAZN show. Speaking of which, there is actually 3 DAZN cards on this Saturday. One of which is over here, and the other 2 are in America. They're taking place on the same time, so you get your choice of boxing action for this weekend coming up. But yeah, that 99-90 scorecard was wild. So basically, that's 9 rounds to 1 including the point deduction that JoJo Diaz got taken off of him for pushing Perez through the ropes in, I believe it was the 6th round. So yeah, doesn't really look good for JoJo, but looking at the fight itself, I felt he did enough to win personally. He made it way too close for comfort, but when you look at the actual punch stats, now obviously to me punch stats don't necessarily mean everything, but it's kind of telling when one person throws 300 punches more than the other guy, yet gets outlanded by about 150 punches in that same spell. So JoJo Diaz, from what I can remember, he threw something like 400 punches, I think, in the fight, and he landed like 100 and I'm gonna have to let me get those figures because I remember seeing the punch stats. One sec. JoJo Diaz punch stats. Right, yeah. So JoJo Diaz landed 188 punches from 471, and Perez landed 137 from 804. So yeah, so JoJo Diaz landed 40% of his punches, and Perez. Oh wait, no, sorry, that's punches in total. 134 of 300 of his, yeah, so he landed 40% of his punches in total, including 40% of his power punches, and Perez landed 17% of his overall punches, which was 137 out of 804, and only landed 21% of his power punches. So when you look at that, you say Jesus Perez, like, he had big activity. So that's one. Yes, he was the more active. He was throwing a lot more shots, but if they're not landing, ultimately, it's very hard to then say, he ultimately won the fight. He had some rounds, obviously, that was a lot more, that was a lot stronger than others, and I could definitely say that I'd say there was 3 rounds in there that you could 100% say were his, but I also feel like there was 4 rounds you could 100% say belonged to JoJo Diaz. So in that sense, you've now got 3 rounds that you split, or whichever way you give them is how it works out, how it plays out. But it was a tactical battle. There was ebbs and flows. It reminded me a little bit of the fight from last week with Liam Dillon and Reece Bellotti, in the sense that you've got one guy that's basically just throwing everything, basically just like throwing the kitchen sink at the fight, but it's not necessarily having a huge impact. When the other guy is being busy, but he's just throwing the cleaner work. He's throwing the stuff that you see, just the eye-catching stuff. So it was one of those ones. The first couple rounds were sort of nip and tuck. Perez did sort of take the first. I think the first one was even. Maybe you could definitely give that one to Perez, I'd say. Second round, I think you could maybe give to him, but from sort of the third round on, I felt like Diaz just kind of got into the fight, and was just landing the more significant stuff. And he even hurt Perez on a couple of occasions, more so than Perez hurt him. So I'm not upset or annoyed by who won. I think Diaz did enough to win, but I can also see a case for Perez getting the decision. But it's just that 99-90 scorecard. Yeah, that's just the one that needs calling into question, that needs investigations. But yeah, JoJo wasn't happy. He pretty much was saying that he's going to be looking to see out his Golden Boy contract and maybe look for a new promoter after this. So I guess we'll have to see how that kind of shapes up moving forward. Big up to October Red in the building. Yes, I am on my own again. Tony has forsaken me for a Masego concert. So that's 2 weeks running that he found other things to do. And you know what? I should have a little bit of a rant right now, yeah, because when was it? Back in December, because I had forgotten that I had tickets to a Jeezy concert. I had the show to do, and rather than skip the show last minute and stop everyone, and everyone was looking forward to to having the show, I gave away my Jeezy ticket to someone else. It was a rescheduled show, so it was supposed to happen, I think, in October, got moved to December, and they moved it to the Tuesday, and I totally forgot. But in that moment, knowing that I had the concert and I had the ticket, I still said, "No, do you know what? I've made a commitment to this show. I'm here to be here every week. Unless I can get someone to obviously cover in enough time, I've got to do what I've got to do." So I decided, yeah, to forego one of my favorite artists. I'm a big Young Jeezy fan. Jeezy, Pastor Jeezy as we call him. But I gave that up to do this show. But yet you got man like Tony taking holidays when he wants to take holidays, booking concerts on the day of the show, and not even arranging cover. Just got me out here on my Jack Jones. I think I want to renegotiate my contract. Now I'm gonna be professional for the rest of this show, just because that's how I am. Yeah. But lo and behold, there will be some conversations afterwards. And we renegotiating my package in terms of my compensations, because I can't be the only one just wanting to go above and beyond, for the platform. Yeah, I could say I could say a bit more, but I'm not going to. That's my little rant for now. Like, that's what dedication is. Every time Man United is playing on the TV, I'm here doing the show instead of watching the game. Don't know if I could say the same thing for my fellow colleague when them games is on and Arsenal's playing. I'm just saying, like, I puts in that graph. I think I need top billing from now on. So anyway, that's enough of that. Um, how is everyone? Let me check the chat before we go into the next one. The Dread was on a mad thing last night. More than that, like, I can't even really get into what he was on. That's crazy. Chris Collingwood, big ups to you. Big ups to you. Um, Untraceable, aren't you two going to spar? Yes, don't worry, the spar will happen. That it will be filmed. And that will be sorted at some point within the next month. We'll lock in some time for that. I got spars with him. I got spars with Danny. I mean, some people tell me that they want me to spar Lions in the camp. I don't know about that, but let's see where we get to. Jam down 187. Big ups to you. October, it's okay. We know you keep it real, 100%. That's how I gotta do. Like, gotta give it to you straight. But yeah, asking for 70-30. I think it might have to be 75-25. I mean, I'm just saying, you know what I mean? What's happening with the Wilder family? Okay, that's personal. That's got nothing to do with anything inside the ring. That's not what we're speaking about here. But yeah, that's a madness as well. I don't know how that's going in, but and then I'm gonna leave Bruce Kai's comment to October. You can read that. I don't want to put that on the screen. Okay. All right. So right. So that was that first fight. Basically, I didn't. Yeah. So that was that one. Next up, I guess we can move over to the Shaki Foster and Abraham Nova fight. So with this one, I actually just finished rewatching it because I wasn't really sure how Nova got a scorecard, to be totally honest. I was like, okay, he did some good work and that, but I just felt like Shaki kind of controlled a lot of the fight. But when I rewatched it, I kind of see how one of the judges kind of gave him the scorecard, because he was very busy, he was very active. His shots weren't necessarily having the most impact, especially towards the later rounds when you could clearly see that he's not really gone that 12-round distance before. But he was being active and he was throwing a lot of body shots. So with that, I think it was a case of the activity definitely won him some of the rounds where even though he was getting visibly hurt with shots back by Shaki Foster. But the way the fight kind of played out, the first round was sort of very tentative between both guys. You can kind of see them. Shaki is very economical. He likes to, he likes to do a little bit of front foot pressure, but he likes to counter. So you could kind of see him was sort of waiting for the counter at times, but whereas Nova's just like he's just like a much physically bigger guy, taller, got that diamond back, just wide, long arms as well. Shaki was having problems in the first rounds. They was trying to work each other out. Second round was a clear Nova round. Nova was implementing distance. He was keeping it at mid to long range. He was controlling the center of the ring, and Foster kind of had to move around. But what I kind of then noticed was in the third round, this is where Shaki Foster made the first adjustment when he switched to southpaw rather than staying in an orthodox stance, because Nova didn't have good trajectory and good range from that southpaw stance. He kept falling over the shot, and at that point he was getting hit with the right over the top of the jab. He was getting caught with the backhand a lot, and he just couldn't get his feet set to throw his shots straight enough at the target. And then, so that was to me, that was a clear Foster round. In round 4, it started off very well for Shaki Foster, but Nova came back into it. And I remember there was a salvo, he rallied and he landed, I think it was he got Shaki towards the ropes to the point where he then knocked him off balance, and he actually knocked him back into orthodox. And at that moment, so Shaki's he's riding some shots, but he's taking, some sort of, big punches on the guard and stuff, but there's some stuff that's still slipping through, it's still scoring, and then he's sort of like in the center trying to sort of clinch. And then from there, like the 5th round sort of played out a little bit more like that, but the clean work again was coming from Foster just about. 6th round was similar, but I kind of felt like Nova took that one just from the pace of it. But then from the 6th onwards, like the 7th round, to me, Foster picked it up in the 7th, picked it up in the 8th, and picked it up in the 9th. And at this point, he looked to me very much like Nova was tired, like he was starting to feel the pace a bit, but he was still trying to sort of rally and throw sort of big shots, especially like in the 9th. But in the 10th round, he definitely came back in the 10th. Foster had a very good first half of the round, eye-catching shots, like he was controlling distance, controlling the range. It was pretty much looking like it was one-way traffic. And then I remember he got hit by a big, I think it was like a big overhand right. He was doing well in playing the uppercuts on the inside to Nova, but in this one he got caught with something, got pushed back towards the ropes, and then ended up getting flurried. He got flurried onto by Nova at this point. And it's almost like at this point Nova took the round away from him because he had him just backed up on the ropes. Foster was still trying to do some work, but everything was just kind of getting smothered. He was just getting outworked and out hurried and out hustled. In the 11th round, the same thing happened again, whereby even though the clean work is still coming from Foster, like the volume is coming from Nova, and you could say to yourself, yeah, he might have just nicked that one as well. So at that point, I've kind of got 5 rounds to him on my card, even though I wasn't scoring it officially, but that's kind of how it looked. And it's very much looked in the balance. But then in obviously the 12th round, where you see basically, so Shaki Foster is, he's teeing off, he's pretty much getting that work done until he's able to actually drop Nova. He connects with a punch. I think he slips a little bit on the paint as well, but the punch connected quite solidly to the head. Slipped on the paint on the canvas, went down, got the 10-8, and then from there he basically tried to just throw the kitchen sink at the fight for the last 20, 30 seconds to see if he could recover the round. But unfortunately was unable to. And in that point, yeah, he ended up losing the fight. I think it was, what was it? I think one of the cards was 116, 118. I think there was 115, 113. What was it? 117, 111. And then the Nova card was 114, 113, I believe. So, yeah, ultimately, Shaki Foster keeps his belt. He says that making weight was difficult for him on this one. Said that he's going to look to try and employ a nutritionist in his next fight. But if he still comes in too heavy to the fight, then he's going to look to move up to 135. Personally, I think he should move up anyway. I mean, 130's got some decent names, but all the good fights for him are at 135 at this point. He can, you know, he's been a free agent before. He can cross the street if he needs to, but he's at top rank. He can fight for a vacant title at 135. If you've got Navarrete going up there to fight for a vacant title, I'm sure he can get a title shot as well. I don't see a reason. He's a WBC champion at 130. Go up to 135 and fight Shakur Stevenson. Use your champion's right to sort of see if you can be installed as the primary mandatory. That's what I would suggest. Then you can kind of see if you can get maybe a Tank Davis fight, if possible. You get a Frank Martin, Michelle Rivera. Oh no, I think he's gone up to 140 now. But yeah, there's Joe Cordina's gonna go up to 135, I think, after his next fight. So that's where all the work's gonna be. So yeah, maybe if you just have one more down here, but hold on to the belt and then take it to 135, I think he'd be a very good addition up there, personally. Right, let's see. Base, can you touch on Boots versus Crowley fight and what you think? I can do, seeing as there's not a huge amount to talk about for this weekend. What I will say though, I'm pretty certain that I saw Cody Crowley retire about 4 months ago. So while he might still be in the rankings, he was pretty adamant that he was done with boxing and that he was moving on to do other things. So I don't know if that's the case or not, but if this obviously does come about, I mean, it's pretty much just of the level that Boots has been fighting. You know, Cody Crowley is not that much better than a Chikadze or a Villanova. But he's technical. That's one thing I'll say. He's a tidy fighter. He does everything like correctly, if not spectacularly, but he doesn't really have a lot of power. That's gonna be his issue, because I feel like Boots won't respect the shots coming back, so he's gonna unleash hell at that point, because he's gonna be prepared to walk through the fire to get his shots off rather than playing it tactically, because I just don't think he's going to respect Cody Crowley's power. So if that fight does get made, I do expect it to end in a stoppage by Boots. But if that's the case, like if it does officially get ordered and it actually gets put on a card and everything, I'll go back and I'll watch some more tape of Cody and Boots, and then obviously basis picks, I'll give a definitive answer. But that's just how I see it. I don't think he's a strong enough puncher for Boots to respect, in which case, if that's the case, he's going to have to employ movement more than anything else to kind of get that one done. I gave Nova many of the early rounds. Yeah, I'll agree with that. Like, the first round was pretty even, but that could be a Nova round. Second round was definitely his. Third round was a Shaki round. Fourth round, I think Nova as well. And the fifth, I guess it was a bit of each, but you choose which one you want to give it to. But I think, yeah, from sort of 5.5 onwards up until like round 10, I think Shaki just pretty much dominated, but then he allowed Nova to kind of come back in the 10th and the 11th, which is to me what ended up making it a bit too close. But Philip, I actually scored it 114, 113 to Nova, so I was with that judge's scorecard. Cool. Like I said, he done a lot of his activity was there. So if you were judging it based on activity and especially body punching, he was very aggressive to the body, especially in the later rounds. You know, and the fact that he was pushing Shaki back to the ropes, even though Shaki was kind of there just resting comfortably, hitting uppercuts off the retreat on the ropes as well, working, but you're still got your back to the ropes. If the judge can't see the work you're doing, it just looks like you're getting bullied around the ring. So I can totally understand someone giving over 7 rounds, but I just personally didn't see 7 rounds to him watching the fight. October, I'm glad for this. I still haven't watched them. Good listen. I appreciate it. Thank you, October. I mean, look, you're a very busy person. I'm sure you was up in Manchester for both the press conferences earlier on today, so I can imagine you don't got much time to watch the fights from last week. But they're all on the app. They're still all on the zone for you if you want to go check them out. And as for Shaki Foster, that's on YouTube. So definitely can tune into that. Yeah, see it the same. I don't think anyone troubles Boots at 147 to 154. Yeah, possibly. I mean, to be honest, I think Tim Tszyu will give him problems. He's stylistically suited for Boots, but I think that Tim Tszyu's got enough about him that at 154 he could cause problems. Yeah, but that's pretty much the only one off the top of my head that I can think of that would really sort of give Boots a hard task, or possibly Errol Spence if he comes back and goes to 154, potentially that might be a trouble for Boots. But I don't know. Boots doesn't have the same skill set as Crawford, so I don't think he'd be able to nullify Spence the same way that Crawford did. But that being said, Spence is pretty basic. So as long as you kind of know what to prepare for and you make the adjustments, he's not really going to be much of an issue, I would say. Okay, what's Bruce saying? Would be a great fight, but when Gachet put Tim down in round 1, I mean, yeah, but you know, it was one of those flash knockdowns. I mean, if it was the case like, it looked like it buzzed him or wobbled, then just like it knocked him off balance. You know, it's fine. It happens. But you know what? Since then, that one little small knockdown like raised his game substantially, because since then he hasn't even looked. I mean, he's dropped rounds, but every time he's dropped rounds, it's looked tactical. It hasn't looked like he's just lost rounds. So, yeah, that knockdown probably helped him. If we're going to be real, but yeah. Cameron gone to Steel City, Grant Smith base. What do you think of that? Off topic. Are we talking about Cameron Vong? Oh, or do you mean Chantel Cameron? Yeah, October. Put on there if you mean Cameron Vong or Chantel Cameron, because if it's Chantel, I'm not sure why she would be in Steel City when she said her whole thing is that she wanted to go to America to train. But yeah, when you put that in the comments, I'll address that after sort of the next fight. Mauricio Lara and Mauricio Lara and what's his name? Daniel Lugo. Now this was a big surprise in terms of I was like, okay, when they said he was moved up to 130, I said, okay, so is he basically saying that he can't make 126 again? But then he was like, well, no, he can still make 126. He's just testing this one out to see how he feels or whether he wants to go back down. Immediately when I hear those kind of things, I get concerned. The first thought is you just didn't bother to train for this fight, or you didn't train in the same way. If you're going to make unless like you've got title shots in both the divisions, then it doesn't really make sense to test the waters up there when there's still a lot of work for you down at the lower weight if you can make it. Now, if you can make it, then it just, like I said, this one seems like you weren't really in the moment. Now, having looked at him at this weight, if he wants to fight at 130, I don't know if it's the right weight for him. The difference in his last fight, when he wasn't allowed to make the 126 limit against Lee Wood, and this one, in both of those fights, he looked extremely sluggish and slow. Those extra 4 pounds, it almost looks like they affect him more than they would a normal or like another boxer. He doesn't seem very comfortable with that extra weight. And maybe he needs to work into it. But if that's the case, he's got to commit to that weight class properly. But yeah, very slow, very sluggish, very ploddy. Before he was a lot more sort of like explosive in his hooks and everything. Now everything just kind of seems lazy and pushed and forced out. And on a side note, is it just me or did he kind of give you like Audi version Gennady Golovkin vibes in the ring? He just looked like he just looked like an Audi size Gennady Golovkin. I don't know what it was, but everything, it just looked ponderous, like Golovkin in his last couple fights. Like it's not there anymore. And bearing in mind, Lara's like 26, 27. He's had a bit of a long career in that, but it's like maybe time is calling time on his career quicker than normal. I'm gonna give him grace on this one. It was a majority decision draw, but yeah, it was a majority. Yeah, so Lugo got one card. I think he got, what was it, 96? I think he got 96, 94, and then the other two cards were like 95, 95. So yeah, I feel like he needs. Well, we need to see. He's already promised a rematch, so I'm not even going to go too much into it. It was a fun fight. It looked about 3 times that Lara was gonna maybe look for a place to call it quits on the ground. But to be fair to him, he stuck to the task. He clearly takes Mexican pride, like he takes it seriously. He stayed in there. There was a couple of times I thought, okay, it looks like he might go down from a shot, but he carried on. He stopped feeling sorry for himself, and then he went after it, and ultimately, I guess he managed to correct the decision. Both him and Eddie said, no, we want the rematch immediately. Eddie was very critical, and I think Eddie was critical for the fact that at that point, Lara don't really understand exactly what he's saying, so he can be a bit more quote unquote scathing in that moment. But I'm sure maybe when someone goes and translates it back to me, he might not be as happy. But yeah, he did agree that he wants to take the rematch as soon as it can be made. He wants to correct that and correct that draw on his record. And it was a fun fight, so I'll happily see it again on another undercard. That's pretty much all I'll say about it. And yeah, thank you, Philip and October and North Branks, confirming it is Chantel Cameron. So that is interesting. Again, I don't know. Maybe there was more of a riff with Clifton than we actually know about. I saw him the other day, funnily enough. About a couple of weeks ago. He didn't seem in any. I didn't ask him about it. It's none of my business. But from all I know, she just said that she wanted to train in America. I don't know if it's maybe because of that interview that he gave the other day where he was like, yeah, I wasn't about to, go and move my camp or move my people over to America for the money that I was on. And I think maybe that got her back up. So she's like, oh, okay, so if that's, all right, I'll do this to spite you. I'll come back to the UK. Or maybe she just wanted to try a one camp out there with that group, didn't like that group, but then realized I can't really go back to Clifton because maybe even though they're on decent terms, it's not the same. You can't kind of go on. It's like going, you leave a job and you're like, oh, but you love everyone there, but you've left. You don't really go back too tough. Like it doesn't work. It doesn't really work like that. And then they kind of look at you a bit different when if you're trying to come back too. So yeah, I mean, wait, hold on. Why am I thinking of Sandy? No. All right, apologies, guys. Chantel Cameron, we're talking about. So she was with Jamie Moore, and now she's gone to. See, this is why you guys can't put this on when I'm thinking of. All right. Sandy Ryan is with Clifton or was with Clifton. Now she's gone to America. Chantel Cameron's gone to the gym. I was getting the two of them mixed up. Apologies. Okay, yeah. So Chantel was with Jamie Moore, and now she's gone to the Steel City gym with Grant Smith. Okay, so that I didn't know prior. I'll reserve judgment, but the Steel City gym is a good gym. I mean, You know, you got Sonny Edwards there, you got Dalton Smith. I think isn't Ishmael Davis also in that gym? I think he's in there sometimes as well. But yeah, I don't know why Chantel would leave Jamie Moore. I'm not sure why. I thought they had a good thing going, but you know, sometimes when you lose a fight, you say that you have that as an excuse, innit? So you say to yourself, all right, well, maybe I wanted to leave, but things was going good. Now it's gone the other way. Um I can try something different. A lot of people do that, right? They don't necessarily want to take responsibility for the loss themselves. It's the environment. So in order to change your outcomes, you change your environment. So yeah, ultimately, I think I think it'd be a good move because Grant Smith's a very good coach, very good trainer. I don't know how long it's going to take for them to gel. And obviously we don't know when her next fight is going to be, whether it will be the trilogy fight with Katie Taylor or it's going to be something else. But if they can gel quickly and gel well, then yeah, hopefully, I can see that being a very good partnership. He can unlock maybe a bit of extra footwork from Chantel and get her back to her boxing more so than just wanting to come forward and be a bruiser, because she did have very good sort of boxing skills, footwork, in and out movement, and lateral and head movement before. Now she's sort of more of a guard up, walk forward, dig to the body type person. So yeah, maybe he can unlock just a bit more of the technicalities and sort of get her back to that and making her just more of a well-rounded tool, as opposed to like a blunt force trauma. You know. But we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, last fight to talk about of the night. I think definitely the fight of the weekend, the story of the weekend, is Adrian Curiel versus Sivanati Nontshinga, the rematch. Obviously, as we know, the first fight happened in November. Out of the blue, one punch cold knockout in the second round in Monte Carlo. A point where I don't think anyone saw that coming. I mean, look, even if I thought that Curiel would beat Nontshinga in the first fight, which I didn't, I did not see it being by KO. I mean, I know that you can't always go by KO stats because some people, they do hit a lot harder than they actually than their records suggest. People just sort of tuck up and they just don't have the good finishing instincts. But on that night, every single thing in the world aligned for Curiel, and he delivered a punch which had every single one of his ancestors attached to it, and it was enough to take Sivanati Nontshinga out like cold. But although the funny thing is, it's like even though he was whomped on the floor, like his eyes was open, and then as soon as the ref went to go and wave it off, if she had carried on counting, he was actually looking to get back to his feet. And then I remember he looked up at her like, why stop it? Although she was absolutely right to stop that fight, because no matter if he got up, he was just going to take a pasting and he was going to get brutally stopped afterwards. But yeah, he was whomped on the floor, but his powers of recovery was pretty swift, because when he actually got to his, like, you know, he sat up and then stood up, he was fine. Like, he wasn't dazed, he wasn't wobbly, he was actually okay. So in this fight now, his whole tactic was, whereas in the first fight he did stick on the inside a bit, but he was also doing some of the outside fighting because he's got the longer limbs and he's the taller guy. Whereas on this one, he stuck to Curiel's chest for the entire time of the fight. He didn't let Curiel get more than like a step away from him. He had to absorb a lot of punishment, especially to the body. He was giving back some good quality work as well. But he was really just there absorbing shots, just, I guess, maybe hoping that he could wear Curiel out, or because he doesn't maybe have a game plan, a plan B or a plan C, he's just gonna go for it. He's gonna work and work and work, and then hopefully get him tired down the stretch when he doesn't have anything else to sort of offer. But the brilliant thing, and the one thing I noticed, it was funny to look at, but it was a perfect tactic. Anytime that Adrian Curiel managed to create any separation between the two of them, oh, his Nontshinga's arm was just, it was glued to the side of his head, like differently. I see tight guards and everything, but I've never seen it literally, man, like he was on the phone the entire time. That arm wasn't moving for nothing. And it was just a case of, you could tell that was like that little past trauma of, I can't have that happen again. So even though a lot of time you protect against it, like he legit looked like afraid anytime there was separation between the two of them. I just found it funny, but I also think it was, a brilliant tactic, and it prevented Nontshinga from absorbing anything to the head really. Um, took a couple of uppercuts, nothing major. Took a few shots here and there, but ultimately it was it was, he was fairly comfortable. He was working, but he was losing the rounds. I gave him the first round, but then everything up until like the seventh was, to me, it was a Curiel. Seventh round was close. But one thing I started noticing, and I don't know if anyone else in the chat saw this, Adrian Curiel was being very, very sneaky when he was when he was pushing Nontshinga to the ropes, and Nontshinga's actually now trying to spin off. You would see that he was pushing him with his shoulder, and then he was actually gripping either the top of the rope with his hand, or he was gripping the side bit in the middle of the ropes away from the referee, so the referee couldn't see it. But it also meant that Nontshinga couldn't spin out of that side of the that side of the ring either, or that side of his peripheral view. And I thought, that is very sneaky, but I like it. When they talk about dark arts, that's definitely one of them. You keep a guy pinned to the ropes and you don't allow him any opportunity to move. And when he's trying to slip out, nope, where you going? Stay where you are. Take these shots. And that's very much how. So every time you could hear Nontshinga's coach like, yeah, all right, brilliant, turn him, and Nontshinga's trying to turn him and he can't move because the arm's just there locked into place. I thought that was quite amusing. But yeah, I think there was a clash of heads that took place in the towards the back end of the seventh or in the eighth round, and that clash of heads definitely seemed to turn the tide. It almost felt at that point like Adrian Curiel started feeling a bit sorry for himself in there. He started running out of ideas, didn't really know how to change up the game plan, and he was looking visibly tired. You can clearly see he doesn't really go rounds like that, especially at the work rate he was putting in. So yeah, he was definitely punching himself out. Nontshinga was there doing his new school version of the rope dope, or even just the punching bag. We're gonna call that the punching bag technique from now on. You know that when you hit the punching bag, but every time you hit it, like you make an indent, but ultimately it still pops back out. You can't really break it. It's very rarely that you can bust up a punching bag. But that's what we're gonna call that technique from now, because that was what he was employing, but still being active and competitive in the rounds, even though he was losing them. But at that point, that's when he started to create separation in the eighth round and started loading up with those long levers, the straight right, like that, also that jab, and he was working more from distance in the eighth, and he was visibly hurting Curiel. At that point, you kind of see in the ninth, Curiel tried to come back a bit, so Nontshinga then he closed the distance again, got back on his chest, just started working back on the chest, and this time Curiel didn't really have much. He didn't really have much answers. You could see his mouth open, breathing heavily, didn't really know what to do at that point. And yeah, just from there, you see he then created separation again in the 10th. Well, towards the end of the ninth, he's created separation, big flurries, big shots. He dropped even Curiel. It basically looked to me like he dropped, but the ref didn't count it as a knockdown. Big flurries, big punches, whether it was uppercuts, left hooks, straight rights, just barrage of punches. He manages to get out of the ninth round. In the 10th round, Curiel doesn't let him get out of the 10th. Nontshinga doesn't, but he's in the first flurry. There was one flurry where he catches him with some big shots and dips his legs, but then in the second one, you see Curiel kind of rolling and riding a lot of shots, but he's still taking some. They're not clean, but he's taking some. And at that point, but the ref jumps in to deliver a standing 8. It's been a while since I've seen the ref jump into the action to deliver a standing 8 count rather than to wave the fight off. But yeah, Nontshinga's obviously gone. He's given the count, and yeah, Curiel said, "I want to carry on. I'll go," but you can see it in his face, like he doesn't really know what to do now. So yeah, Nontshinga just piles on the pressure again. Nothing's coming back from Curiel. He's dodging some shots, slipping some shots, but he's still getting hit. He's not throwing back. He's just been busted up for the last couple rounds, visibly gassed, and the referee then jumps in and waves it off and says, "All right, that's it." Sivanati Nontshinga gets his belt back. Redemption. Again, he seems to like to go to Mexico, because every time he goes to Mexico, he pulls out, a show stealing performance, which normally ends in a knockout. So yeah, maybe no more Monte Carlo shows for you, Sivanati. You stick to those Mexican shows, or maybe like you can get onto one of the British shows if Sonny goes down to 108. Although I'm gonna be real, actually no. As much as I don't get me wrong, like I'm a sort of a fan of Sonny's style and everything. Everyone knows, like, ring IQ. I've said he's like one of the. I give him sort of a top 5, definite top 10 in the world in terms of IQ and knowledge in the ring. But even if you can make the 108, I don't want to see that Sonny Edwards fight now. Sonny can maybe go and fight Gonzalez. Try and see if you can get a Bomba Gonzalez fight after his fight on the March the 2nd on the Amanda Serrano card. I want Sivanati Nontshinga to take on Kenshiro Taraji. I need that 3 belt unification. I need to see what that looks like. Do it in Japan. Do it in Mexico. No, do it in Japan. It's gonna make the most money over there. Kenshiro he's been calling for those, trying to be undisputed at 108. Sivanati, I think that'll be a brilliant fight, and yeah, I'm here for that. That's what I want to see next. So next time I see Eddie, or October, actually, when you see Eddie, just ask him if he can make that 3 belt unification for me, because he talks to you more than he talks to me. But yeah, that's definitely sort of what I would like to see. And then Sonny Edwards can face the winner of that fight, or like I said, if he can get to Bomba Gonzalez, then have that belt, and then you can do an undisputed fight at 108 if you want to make 108, or stay at 112. I mean, to be honest, Bam's getting back up, so maybe staying at 112, you can fight for your old title again and see if you can end up ruling that division. And on a side note, speaking of Sonny Edwards, him and Nonito Donaire got into a little bit of a issue on Twitter X yesterday. And Sonny said, "Look, if you can make 118, I will." He said, "I will gladly come up to 118 and fight you." So yeah, I think it all stemmed from Rachel, obviously Nonito's wife and manager, maybe having a bit of a comment on, because I think Sivanati's mandatory is a Filipino. I can't remember his name, but Sonny was like, "Well, I think I deserve that fight," and they're like, "Well, no, well, he's in the rankings, he's the mandatory, and he's earned his shot," kind of thing. And then yeah, so they had the little bit of back and forth, but I'm only highlighting it just to say, if that fight does happen, it escalated from a situation yesterday on Twitter. So if you haven't seen it, take a look. I actually did reach out to the team to see if I could get Nonito to come on this week, seeing as I was going to be by myself. But unfortunately, he's in Australia at the moment. So yeah, it wasn't, the time zones and stuff wouldn't have worked. Well, it could have, but I'm not asking anyone to get up at 6 a.m. in the morning, 7 a.m. in the morning to come on here. So yeah, that's basically how that sort of how that transpired. But yeah, just for a little bit of context for anyone who maybe hasn't seen it. Go back to some of these comments. Bruce, can I guarantee Josh will call out Lara now after that performance? The thing is, he might, but he's still in the same danger he would have been in before, because he just doesn't hit hard enough to worry Lara. And those left hooks are still gonna, no matter how much he's pushing them, you're still gonna feel it if you get caught with it. So good luck to him if he does. G-Chain, Lara aging like a fossil. I mean, yeah, I don't know if he dyed his hair that silvery color or if it's just gone that way after maybe a hard 9 months. But yeah, he definitely looks like he's aged about 4 years in the last 9 months. Dean Mills, he wasn't willing to go over there and done. Very true. That's about Lara again. Absimus Maximus, big ups to you. Haven't seen your name, but yes, Chantel left Jamie Moore, as they were saying earlier. Thank you very much for tuning in. Make sure you come back. Dean Mills, but just for the record, Sandy has been with him on and off for years. Who's he talking about there? I think he's talking about Clifton. Okay. Her brother Dave was as well. Okay, cool. Big up to Fight Fan TV Live. Big up to Danny. Oh, speaking of which, Danny, right? I think I know the reason why we was getting screwed over in that game on Android. I'll talk to you about it afterwards. But thus far, I've done a couple tweaks and I'm not getting screwed anymore. Like things are working the way they're supposed to be working. So I'll talk to you about that after the show. Yes, hit the like button if you guys haven't. North Bank, Josh hits hard enough base with his. That's very true. So I mean, yeah, if he can get the nut in there a couple times, pause. He might be able to, he might be able to offset that power difference in the punch power, and it might even then double and triple up the punch power once he's a bit woozy from the constant head clashes. So yes, you're quite right, North Bank. I didn't think of that, and yes, I agree. Well, wholeheartedly. But look, ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, like I said, wasn't really much else to talk about. I hope I've done okay today. I'm gonna be totally honest with you. Literally about an hour and a half ago, I was slumped in my bed. So I was struggling, I was tired, but I said, no. I need to come off. I need to try and give you as much energy as I can. There's not a huge amount. I know a lot of people probably didn't watch all the fights, but I've tried to do as best as I could on this one. But yeah, I appreciate everyone for obviously being in the chat. Alan, think you're a new person. I haven't seen you before. Yeah, I was just about to say hits hard with his head. Yep, definitely. Thank you very much for the comment, North Bank. Everyone else, Jam Down, salute to you. Fight Fan, obviously, yes, I'll shout you after the show. G Chain, salute. North Bank, Bren, thank you very much. Clyde, I mean, I said a little bit earlier on, but ultimately we don't know who he's fighting yet. So in terms of that, we just have to wait and see. To be honest, no fight is gonna really be accepted unless it's David Benavidez or Terence Crawford. Every other fight is gonna seem like a non-event. I mean, the Jaime Munguia fight would have been a decent keep busy, but he's already said he's not fighting. He's fighting an American next. Just keep hope alive and hope that it's David Benavidez, isn't it? If it's not, then obviously we can start to we can obviously start to maybe look at him a bit more critically. Of all the people, he does get. I think he deserves more grace than a lot of others. But with that being said, you get like your mandatories were your gimmies. Let's be honest. John Ryder, brilliant. Like loved the guy as a athlete, as a warrior, but he was never on that level. The Gennady Golovkin fight and ultimately the Jermell Charlo fight they were gimmies. Even though they was this free. You've had three kind of gimmies on the bounce right about now. So now it's time to take a tougher opponent. Prove that the Ecuadorian monster isn't all he's cracked up to be. Just go out there and deal with that. Get him out of the way now. Although to be honest, the thing is the funny thing is if he actually waits, it's worse for David if he waits than it's worse for Canelo, because David is already bursting at the seams at 168. He's not long for that division anymore. He's been down there like trying to basically trying to use the weight bully tactics. He should be at 175 right now. He could legitimately be a cruiserweight if he really wanted. So he's killing himself to make 168 and to continue doing it. So the longer he leaves that, the less punching power he's gonna have. If you notice, even in his last fights, his punch output is a lot less than it used to be. That's got to be due to energy. Like he's conserving energy, or he's worried about the gas tank because he knows it's getting harder and harder to make that fight. So yeah, the same way that some people say, oh, maybe he could be aging out Canelo in that sense. Like Canelo could just be waiting him out. Like, and I mean weight as in like body weight, and he could be looking to try and get him in that timing. So yeah, it's a bit of swings and roundabouts. Personally, I've always said I believed it was going to happen this year, September. If it happens now, great. If it doesn't happen in September, I'll be very disappointed unless I get the Crawford fight. You know, if we get a gimme and then Crawford in September, I'm sorry, I'm taking the Crawford fight because I think that is actually the harder fight for him, if I'm gonna be real. From a stylistic point of view, I think that Crawford fight is a much harder fight than the Benavidez one. The Benavidez one is just an issue based on size. That's it. Whereas Crawford, that's a nightmare. And that's what I want to see. I want to see that intrigue. And I'd love for him to be able to make history, you know, be a free weight undisputed champ in the four belt era and then bow out. That would be, you know, that would be brilliant. But yeah. The longer he leaves it, the worse my nephew gonna be. Yeah. You keep saying that, but again, you can't dispute the weight thing. Like he shouldn't be at 168 right now. He's there. He's what did they say? He's basically like been he's been in refuge at 168 because he doesn't want to see the problems at 175. I guarantee you. But yeah. Clyde, Canelo gets gimmies and Opataya gets stripped. To be fair, Opataya, that was an IBF thing. The WBC would have never done that, especially not when Saudi Arabia was involved. That's the IBF. They you know, they do them things. But Canelo's he already dealt with his IBF mandatory. I think he's done his WBC, WBO. Actually, maybe his IBF is next. The WBA mandatory, I think, is David Morrell. So that doesn't come after. I think the IBF is the last in the rotation. I think it's WBA after WBC and then IBF. So it's a different scenario, but yeah, it's the WBC that's just wasting and taking the time. If David wants the shot, he needs to campaign. He needs to campaign to them and tell them he needs to demand his shot now. Demand, make me the mandatory next now. Fight has to take place within 6 months, but he's not doing that. So, and I notice, on a side note, I'm going to say this now, and I know it's going to upset Danny, but facts are facts. He was talking a lot about the Canelo fight when Canelo was on the zone and with Matchroom doing fights over there. As soon as he came to PBC, both him and his dad, maybe not his manager, maybe not Samson, but the rest of them, all of a sudden, they stopped mentioning Canelo's name as soon as he stepped over to PBC. If you check the timeline and you check all of those interviews, when they was talking to how much they wanted that fight, it was when he was over at the zone. So maybe they don't want the fight as badly as you think they do. I'm just saying that could potentially be something to have a think about. But look, ladies and gentlemen, oh, sorry about that. Yeah, with that being said, I'm gonna shut down the stream now. It's been great chatting with you all. I hope you all enjoyed. Yeah, get some rest, get some sleep. I need a rest. I probably got to do a video first thing in the morning before I leave the house. But yeah, with that being said, thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe, and share. Don't forget to hit me up on my channel, which I'm gonna put up right here. BaseDaKID, the hardcore casual. Gonna try and get some content out tomorrow and Thursday. BaseDaKID on Instagram and Threads, but I don't really post on there too much. B_A__S_E on Twittex, but you just type in BaseDaKID, I'll show up. So with that being said, thank you very much, and yeah, catch you next week. Should be quite a bit to talk about, and yeah, I might decide to have a little like an online debate with Tony, but we'll see how we get to. But until then, peace.